request for proposal RFQ is to provide offerers with sufficient information to prepare a proposal for an annual contract to provide audit services to the City of Lynn Haven. The City of Lynn Haven, Florida, hereinafter referred to as the City, is requesting proposals from qualified firms of certified public accountants to audit its financial statements for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2018, with the option of auditing its financial statements for each of the 4 subsequent fiscal years. These audits are to be formed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, the standards set forth for financial audits in the General Accounting Office's governmental auditing standards, the provisions of the Federal Single Audit Act, U.S. Office of Management and Budget, OMB, Circular A-133, audits of states, local governments, and nonprofit organizations, as well as the following additional requirements. And then the objective, of course, is the RFQ. The issuing office would be the City of Lynn Haven. Any questions or any comments so far?
Mayor, I do have one comment, and it's not specifically just to this one thing. This is an overall, and then I'll get to some specifics later.
Sure.
But as I read through this document, I did not find where prior engagements with the city was included in this. In the past, whenever we've done an RFQ, we generally award 15 points out of 100 points for this. I didn't see where this was included in this document anywhere.
Okay.
So I just wanted to bring that out to the commission.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
So is this RFQ going to be a contract for year by year, or as I'm reading this, is it 5 years, or is it a year-by-year contract? Because it's saying here that it's 1 year and then 4 subsequent years.
My understanding is that it could be for either, that we could make it just for one, or that we could have the option of making it for more than one. And I think if you could clarify for us, Mr. Jackson, that if we were to decide on doing it for one, that we would have the option of renewing at the end of that. Is that true?
Yes, ma'am. You could, depending on what you put in the RFQ, you could make it for up to, I guess, 5 years. And then have an annual option to renew. So the contract would be for 5 years, but it would require affirmative action, or you could do a 1-year contract, or you could do just there's a lot of flexibility.
So it's not a 1 year and then a 4 year. It's a 1 year and then a 1 year and a 1 year for up to 5 years. Is that the way that way you're explaining it? I mean, I just want to make sure, because the question I've got is, if it's a 5-year contract, are we doing this because the contract we had has expired, and then we've decided to look for new people, or are we kicking the current company out and putting somebody else in? So, I mean, that would be that. Then that's, I'm just trying to make sure I understand the reason why we're doing what we're doing.
I would speak to that because when I first became mayor almost 3 years ago now, that was one of my questions, because there were a lot of questions from people about different, not calling into question anyone's integrity. Just there was a question of why are we still using the same auditing firm? I think they had been here almost 20 years, I think it was 17 years or something like that. And so there was a lot of discussion that people wanted to see at least maybe a call for bids or a call for an RFQ. And so I really started the conversation, and then I think some others have carried that on as we've moved along.
We're not terminating an existing contract. Their contract's expired, and we're looking at new contracts. Is that what I understand?
I think that it's not an expired contract. I think it's just a matter of we decided that we would like to send out an RFQ, and I think that Commissioner Barnes, and please don't let me put words in your mouth, I think what he's pointing out is that the person that we had before, or not the person but the firm, if they were to want to submit an RFQ, he's asking that they would be given the additional 15 points because of the prior work with the city. Is that correct, Commissioner Barnes?
Well, yes, that's partially right, but also
okay, go ahead.
To go along with what Commissioner Russell is saying, I mean, I just have heartburn with, sorry about that. I just have heartburn with doing this because, number one, the contract with the present auditor has not expired. Number two, we, for the past 20 years, have had very good audits. Number three, that firm is not going to do anything to jeopardize its reputation, its the letter that it provides to the city. So for me personally as a commissioner, I don't see anything wrong with what we have that's already there. There's no wrongdoings. There's never been any wrongdoings that's been found in any of the audits. So I'm just not really totally for this. Actually, I'm against it, but.
Right, and I think that we probably had this discussion before. In fact, I'm sure we did if we go back and look. And I think that the point that I made was not that I wasn't calling for forensic audit or anything like that. I was asking that if the same firm has audited the city for up to 20 years, that, you know, when you're auditing yourself, basically looking back over what you audited the year before, that it would come to there is some public question is, are you going to ever find a mistake that you know, if you said it was perfect last year, are you going to say this year, oh, oops, it's not? You know, maybe it's time for just another lens, another look, another set of eyes. That was sort of my point.
Yeah, but I still stick with what I say.
Okay.
Professionally, no auditing firm, no accounting firm is going to intentionally do something or cover up something for the sake of we just going to cover it up.
I agree.
I mean, they're bound by law to provide an audit that is unbiased, that they go through the books, and that just has not occurred in this city since 1998.
In your opinion?
No, that's true. Because you can go back and you can look at every single audit and it will tell you.
That they found no fault with the city?
I encourage you to go look at every one.
I haven't looked at every one, but I have looked at many, and I will just say one more thing, and then I think Commissioner Russell had something he wanted to say. I would just say, I would compare it to, you're a teacher as well as I'm a teacher, I would compare it when I read someone else's essay. My set of eyes, when I look at it through a different lens, I might see something they missed. Even if they're just as qualified to write it or read it as I am, most writers or most accountants, anybody in a professional setting, a lawyer, after they have a document in front of them, they'll usually let someone else look at it to see if they see something different. That's my point, but I certainly respect yours.
And I respect yours.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Russell?
Didn't mean to start a debate off the bat.
That's what we're here for.
And it's not that I have issue with, and I don't even know what the company's name we're using now. My only question is when does their current contract expire? How does this affect them in the media and everywhere else if we terminate their contract without cause? I mean, if they've got 2 more years in their contract, then I would suggest we finish out their contract and then look for a new account. You know, because I'm sorry. I know I'm the guy that never uses the microphones. I'm sorry. Well, again, I don't even know who we're using, but you know, that's my theory. But I still would like to know what the term of the contract, the existing contract is. How many years are left on the existing contract? So it's just year to year. Okay. Right, and what brought the question up is that it talks here about 4 subsequent years. So that goes back to what I'm saying. So the way you're saying that, then this is not a 1-year contract with 4 subsequents. It's 1 year and then 4 renewals. Right? Yes. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Mayor, I can certainly, and I know we've talked about this before, but I just want to go ahead and continue the conversation, I guess. I certainly respect in your position, and I understand how you're coming to that opinion. But I, like I said before, with this particular service, I see it as a professional service, and which is a little different from some of the other services that vendors, you know, provide to the city. And being a CPA firm, I do know that they're held to higher standards. I know that this particular firm, like other firms, do have to be audited by their peers to maintain those standards. So that's one of the reasons I was originally against, you know, trying to seek out another auditing firm. The other thing is, I also know that banks and bonding companies like stability. They like to see the same audit company or the same type of audits year over year over year. So I would hesitate in that regard as well. You know, we've done some we've done some borrowing lately, and we've done some bonding. So I certainly wouldn't want anything to change in that regard, because we have an unbelievable bond rating right now. The other thing that I wanted to just bring up is, and it's no disrespect to the two individuals, but we do have a new finance director, we have a new city manager, and I out of all of the positions of the city, I want to make sure that we, you know, have stability in the finances, and knowing that budget, and auditing the books, and auditing the general and the enterprise and all of those different things. I would hate to change an auditor or an auditing firm that oversees the books, only because they have that experience, and we would be getting rid of that experience when we have, and again, no disrespect to the two other people. The only other thing that I would mention is, I completely respect your position in a second set of eyes, and I do agree with you 100%. I QC in my office. But maybe if we kept the same firm, the firm could send a different auditor, which would be it would be a different set of eyes. So just a thought. But I thought I'd go ahead and use this opportunity to voice those concerns. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure, appreciate that. Anyone else have further comment?
Mayor, I'll just, I may be able to explain at least a little bit of this. These auditing selection requirements from the state statute are relatively new. And when I say relatively, the last 10, 15 years, our auditor has been part of the city for longer than that. And so, so if we're going to go out for an RFQ, which is not necessarily a bad idea every now and then for any kind of service, that's why these new requirements are in place. That's why we may not have we just have an engagement letter, not a written contract in place with the auditor. Okay. And if I am the only member of the commission, I'm not getting that feeling yet. But if I'm the only one who feels that at least having an RFQ to see what else is out there and who else could possibly do this service for us, from the standpoint of maybe a better price for the city, not so much the service, but maybe a better price. And the city's books are not going to look different than they have always looked, I would think, no matter who the auditing firm is who looks at them. And in all respect to your argument or your point, Commissioner Friend, what you're saying is this auditing firm is so familiar with our books that they would almost, don't let me put words in your mouth, but it's almost like because of their familiarity that we should stay with them. And because of that familiarity is why I say we should consider someone else, someone who's not looked at them so much that they look, everything looks just like it did last year, so therefore, that's,
yeah. No, I
that's where I'm at.
Yes, ma'am, and I completely get your point. I guess kind of the point I was looking at is, so let's say you have an item and the finance director or the city manager says, well, let's put it in this area, or no, we put it in this area. And more to point is maybe some payroll issues or some of those type of things. That's kind of what I was saying is your auditor would come in and say, hey, I know you put that over there and you put this over here, but you really need to put this over here and that over there. That type of thing, and how classifications work and some of the actual detail stuff, and I don't know, and I don't want to put words in their mouth either, but I would dare say that they could even call on the current auditor and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because I just kind of hate to get rid of that experience. That's all.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Of course, you all know that I wanted a forensic audit before, but I want to ask, and I probably would like to ask Beverly this question, if you have the answer. It was my understanding, or it is my understanding, that when any auditor comes in for an annual audit, that we, the employees of the city, simply provide them with the numbers. Is that a true statement? Do we, like each department, do we just provide them with the numbers and then they compile and come up with a report with the numbers that we give them.
Let me answer that, Beverly.
Right. I guess my question is, they don't actually come up with the numbers. We provide them with the numbers, and then they compile a report. Okay.
So, in other words, if I may, Mayor. Sure, go ahead. So, in other words, they're not giving you just arbitrary numbers. Every number that they have access to are in the books in the city of Lynn Haven. Is that correct? Okay. So, these are not just made-up numbers. These are numbers that have occurred throughout each fiscal year. Correct?
Yes, I mean, I give them a general ledger that's relatively final
That has all
when
the,
they come in, yeah.
that has all the bills, all the monies that's come in, everything that's been expended, the whole 9 yards, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a, go ahead, please.
And they do also verify those with invoicing. If it's invoicing, they do pull payroll stubs. They cross-reference, you know, that's just what an auditor does. They're gonna come in and check behind you.
So they go through all of payroll, and
They
they go
will
through
not-
all of the invoices and make sure that we paid what we're supposed to?
No, ma'am,
No.
they will randomly select.
They just take a handful and check them?
Well, it depends. They will grab so many invoices on water. They may grab some from the rec. They may pull an employee from administration, or they may pull an employee from Public Works and check their time, make sure everything comes out correct. So it's very random. So we don't know who that will be. We don't know what invoice. We do not know anything on any of the loans that they look at. They look at our loans. They look at every aspect of everything.
So-
But it's random. I mean, so there's no way that we employ the employees of the city. There's no way the employees can dictate this process.
Knows which ones they'll pull?
No, ma'am.
And even with, just to compare, in a comparison, even in school accounting, and I know they do school accounting, when a school is audited, they don't pull every single receipt, every invoice, everything. It's like drug testing. Okay, today we're going to get this many out of this pile, and this is what we're going to look at. Or we're going to get this many out of this pile, and this is what we're going to look at. So
And they'll look at material amounts too. They, tend to, if they have a very material amount on the balance sheet or the financial statements, they verify that that's the correct amount.
When you say, if you don't mind, Beverly, when they are pulling a receipt, I couldn't find, in looking where I found a complete trail, and maybe it's just something that I'm missing. In other words, when they chose an amount, say in a checkbook register, like the one that I sign every 2 weeks, would they find the original requisition on, just say one check? Would they trail it all the way back to the requisition, to the purchase order, to the okay to the purchase order, to the check, and then to the receipt? Would they follow every single document on one purchase, or would just the receipt and the check on a purchase?
They're gonna look at
The entire trail?
that entire transaction.
That was not clear,
To make
okay.
sure that it was done in accordance with our
Okay.
policies.
And is there, I also couldn't find really too many comments over the years about and I don't mean to bring up a sore subject, gentlemen and ladies, but I couldn't find really anything written up about one of the big issues was the transferring of enterprise funds and stormwater funds into general fund as that being a bad accounting practice. I didn't find a lot written about that in any of the reports.
Well, as a general rule, you want, an enterprise fund should be a self-supporting fund, and so it should, the fees that are generated or money that's generated should support the work done in that fund. And I guess that's, while we're doing a rate study and looking into why there's sort of a mismatch between some
Exactly.
of the funds. They've not, so, I mean, I think that's the best practice
Yeah,
as a general rule. I don't know what's been mentioned in the past.
I couldn't find it. And then my other question is that now, in the last couple of years, we've looked at banks for loans, and we have been using the same person for bonds to the point that we even had a familiar name for that person in the city. It was like a family name almost. I won't say it, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. And the city does have a good borrowing rate, but we don't have the best. I mean, we're at a point we can only borrow a certain amount at different times because of past borrowing practices, is my understanding, with that bonding company. And we've gotten some better interest rates by going through some banks and looking. So again, my point is not so much about whether the services provided by this company are the best, but have we even looked to see if there's one that's more price effective or a better, in other words, a better price for the services? Have we even looked to see if there's some other company that could provide the same thing for a better price? Have we looked? That's just my question.
Well, I know that over the past 11 years, that the average increase that we've paid to CRI, Carr, Riggs and Ingram, is 1.12%.
But that didn't answer my question. Have we compared them to another firm to see if the other firm was willing to do it for less?
Well,
I would
Mayor,
answer
if I
no
may,
to that.
I would say that, you might get a firm that's going to do it for less, but at the same time, if they come in and they're starting fresh, they're going to want the bid, so they may bid lower and come in, and especially if we're talking about a 4 or 5 year deal, then we may see a steady increase over the term of that original, contract. So just to that point. But Mayor, you just did remind me something. I just want to make sure I go on record to say that,
Okay.
I completely appreciate, as mayor, you doing what you want, what you're doing, especially because you sign stuff. And I get that. As the chairman of the TPO, I did the exact same thing. When I started signing all those invoices, I started questioning, I started digging, and I started asking questions. And I did my own audit of, where's this invoice? Let me see it. Let me put my eyes on it. So I can certainly appreciate, I just want to go on record to tell you that I appreciate your position as mayor. I think you're doing exactly what you should do.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but as a professional service, it can't be negotiated. Is that not correct? You can't negotiate a price on a professional service. You can negotiate, you can look at their qualifications and you can work with this person, but if you don't like his price, you can't go to the next person and then go back to this person. Once you've left this person, you're done with him, correct?
You cannot do that in the city.
On professional services, okay.
May I ask?
Can the attorney speak to that, please?
Yeah, I mean, there is a statute called the Competitive Consultant Negotiations Act, the CCNA, that you may have heard about before, that covers specific professions. The auditors are not covered under that act, and so this is covered under a separate statute. In the statute, it says that the compensation that they're paid shall not be the number one reason why you select that person. It can be a factor, but it can't be the most important factor. And so that today is, if y'all go forward with this, is to determine, the scoring and what the factors are. So it can be considered, but it can't be the majority factor that it's based on.
Can I ask, I'm just curious, what do we pay a year for our current auditing?
I think it's around 50,000, 52,000, seems
15?
52.
50.
I think it's around 52,000.
If if I remember. Not
That's
mixing it up with
recollection.
another city.
And Mayor, if I can add just one more thing,
Sure, thank you.
I've been looking at the guidelines from the Government Financial Organization on auditors, and they specifically suggest that a contract for a government entity for an auditor should be at least 5 years in length to give the continuity that Commissioner Friend was talking about.
Okay.
But y'all can make it any term you want to, but.
The suggestion is 5, but you could do it for just 1 year, and then you could, if you were satisfied, you could add a letter of continuance.
You could do a 1 year with 4 renewals and then have the contract definitively end at 5 years. You could do a 5-year and then 1 year renewals for a certain term, another 5 years. I mean, the flexibility is yours.
Okay.
Well,
Are there other comments? Go ahead,
Yes, ma'am.
please, go
Just
ahead.
last thing.
No, no.
I looked at my notes. I apologize.
This is maybe the only time we discuss it, so please
Yeah,
go ahead.
Thank you. And I just think we have a great firm right now. I mean, I'm very familiar with the firm. I don't use the firm for my business, but I know the reputation of the firm, and I'm just like, why are we? You know, it comes full circle as to why are we even doing this when we already have a great firm. But anyway, I just want to make that last comment.
Anyone else?
Well, I would just like to respond to Commissioner Friend. I feel the same way, but exactly the opposite, because I feel like when you have the same company over and over and over, I just feel like it invites complacency, and I don't even know this firm. I still don't know, but I just feel just the opposite. When you have something go on so long, you know, I just think fresh eyes are a good thing too.
Well,
Commissioner Barnes?
I respect that. However, in this particular situation, Carr Riggs and Ingram have done an outstanding job. They come with a very impeccable reputation. This firm has not, over the past, 18 plus years, done anything that will jeopardize their reputation, that will cause a black eye on the city. And I feel, I don't understand why we're doing this. I cannot support this, will not support it. And so that's my take on this. I think stability is important, especially with all the changes that's going on within this city. And we really need to stick with something or with someone that knows how our finances are. And they've got a good grasp of it. And I support these guys 100%, but I don't support this.
Okay, thank you so much. Commissioner Friend?
Sorry, Mayor, I lied.
No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, the longer we talk about this, the more I'm going to.
It's
Okay,
okay.
so back to, and maybe we can confirm this, but I'm just remembering. When I mentioned that the CPA firm gets audited by its peers, if I'm not mistaken, its peers, so another firm would audit our audit. So they don't get audited themselves, like, are you a good firm? They actually audit an audit that the firm did. Does that make sense?
Oh,
So-
I totally understand that
Okay.
concept, but I don't see records of that.
Well,
Maybe I'm
that's
looking-
maybe if we
I don't see
confirm-
records of that with the city.
Exactly. My point to that would, well, we could ask the CPA firm to supply that as our vendor. If we ask for it, they could supply it.
I guess,
But
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, you're okay.
why have we never asked to see something like that before, I guess would be.
Well, I guess because it's never been called into question.
Okay.
And
Go
again,
ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I completely respect your position as mayor doing this, and I'll support that. But,
Go ahead, Commissioner Friend.
But anyway, I think if going back to the point of another set of eyes, I think if the auditor gets audited by its peers, keeping in mind its peers are not its buddies, it's its peers in which we would hire if we went through this process, would oversee the audit that our current auditor did, that would be your different set of eyes. So I just think that may be something that if we don't move forward with the RFQ, that may be something that we could ask for.
I appreciate that. Anyone else have another question or another comment? Well, we're in the middle of a workshop, and this is one of the times when we can talk to each other publicly. So before I, would ask for any public comment, I just wanted to ask for a couple of more things from you. Would you be willing to say, Commissioner Barnes has made it pretty plainly about how he feels about it, but I haven't really heard it. And I kind of hear from Commissioner Tender where she's headed. I haven't heard from Commissioner Russell, really. And, you know, in other words, should we just thank you, the workshop is over, or do we have more discussion, I guess is the question I'm asking, ladies and gentlemen. And I ask that with respect.
I appreciate it, Mayor. I mean, I'll start. I've struggled with it, you know, and I did agree for us to get to where we are now because, again, I respect what you're trying to do, especially as mayor. I think that's something that you should do. You sign off on these things, and I won't repeat myself.
You're fine.
But I think if we came down to voting on doing the RFQ and trying to get in another auditor, I'd have a hard time supporting that.
Okay. Commissioner Russell, you want to say anything? Are you?
Yeah, no,
Where are you?
I kind of mirror Mr. Friend's or Commissioner Friend's opinion too. I mean, unless we're looking at saving money, and apparently we're not supposed to include that as one of the major reasons to do it. So, I mean, if we're not looking at it
As the only reason, it can be.
Oh, I know, but it can't be a majority reason. It can be a reason. Other than that, I don't see a reason why we should be looking for another firm either.
Okay. Commissioner Tender?
Well, I definitely think we should be looking for another firm, or at least see what's out there. I mean, just to find out. Excuse me, I liked what Commissioner Friend said. Let's ask the auditor for their audit on their company. But I'm still, I don't know. I still am concerned because of the length of time. The length of time sometimes doesn't mean that it's all because it's good. It can mean let's just leave well enough alone kind of thing too. And I don't mean anything by that except I think sometimes change is good. But I go back to asking that question. Somebody once told me that when we do an audit, we simply hand them the numbers. So I ask, and I was looking into this when I asked for the forensic audit, because they don't just ask for us for the numbers. You know, they dig in to see what goes where and all of that. And I have another question. I'm piggybacking up to that. Do we, as a commission, have the right to call the auditor in? I'd love to ask. I got a million questions to ask our auditor. I'd like to know, you know, where this money came from. Why is it over here? You know, how did it get there? That kind of thing. I'm not a bookkeeper. Couldn't go there if I wanted to. But do we even have that capability to ask our auditor?
I don't think there's any prohibition through Florida ethics that you couldn't speak with just any differently than if you would speak to our attorney on something you didn't understand. Mr. Jackson, you want to speak to that?
No, ma'am. I'm not aware of any. I wouldn't think there'd be any restriction to that. And typically, the auditor presents the audit to the commission. For approval is not necessary, but typically the governing body does approve the audit.
And when does that happen? What month?
Typically, when the audit is finished and presented and ready to be finalized.
When is that?
What do you think it'll be?
It was in
September.
the summer. It was in the late summer.
I've been here almost a year.
And we're kind of, I mean, I got another list of questions from them today. So I think we're kind of nearing the end of the audit, though. I would think in the end of March, the first of April probably, would they have it
March,
ready?
June,
Yeah. I think the next couple months. It
Is
should
our
be done.
auditor local?
Yes.
This is somebody that I could actually call?
Yes,
Okay. Who is it?
CRI.
Car rigs and Brown.
We can get you the number.
I think Commissioner Barnes had something else he wanted to say. Did you have a?
Well, we finished polling the commission about how they.
Well,
feel
it was,
about
I suppose it was polling, but what I was trying to do was just, there was no pointing us to continue in that direction if everybody's kind of against it. So
Well,
that's what I was doing,
okay.
not.
I mean, are we finished with that part though?
I think so. I think everybody stated their opinion.
Okay, all right. Can I make a suggestion?
Of course.
Since we have new commissioners on board, let's have a workshop with the auditor and the commission and allow the commission to ask the auditor questions so that they can get some clarity, they meaning all of us, can get some clarity, because I don't think anybody's had an opportunity to talk to the auditor.
I did.
Okay,
And
well,
they
I know
were,
I have.
they were offended by my
I thought-
questions
well-
when I asked the questions
Well,
in
I'm
public
not,
meeting.
I'm not even gonna go there, but I think we need to have an open communication with the auditor instead of just trying to throw them out the window. So I would suggest that since everyone's had their opinion about this and the majority of the commission feels like we don't need to do this, let's schedule a workshop with the auditor. He'll come, and then we have that opportunity to ask whatever questions that we need to ask.
I think that's a superb idea. Anyone else have a thought about it?
I love the idea. I just want to make sure he has everything with him so that when we ask him a question, we don't get put off, that he'll answer it sometime later. I want answers then.
Well, then let me make another suggestion. I mean, if you have, he can't bring his whole entire office in here. So, I mean, if you got some specific questions, obviously ask him, but also understand that he can't bring everything in his room. So he may have to go back and look at some stuff depending upon your question.
Well, here's what I would suggest perhaps is let's audit the auditor, okay? So if we're going to do that, let's maybe submit to the auditor, these are things that we have questions about or concerns, and this is what we want you to bring to the workshop. That way we can get answers at the workshop, because I agree, I don't want to come in and say, well, I'll have to check on that. If I have specific questions, then they can bring and answer those questions maybe.
Could I propose that maybe we wait until the audit is complete and have them to present the audit and then schedule a workshop after that to ask specific questions about what materials they bring forth? How does everybody feel about that?
I love it.
Okay. At this point in time, I would like to ask if the public has any questions they would like to ask about the RFQ or about the process, or if you have any comments you'd like to make. Yes, sir. Sure. appreciate that.
Can I respond?
Of course.
Mr. Walker, with all due respect, I understand what you're saying. For the past 5 years, as a commissioner, I've never been told I cannot talk to the auditor. Rodney, Commissioner Friend, has been here almost 8 years. I don't think he's ever been told. No commissioner at the time that you are talking about has ever been told they could never talk to the auditor, or the information would have to go through the city manager type deal. Right, I heard that part, but I also heard the other part. I mean, I'm just pointing out what you're saying, okay? Just with all due respect.
Does anyone else have a comment or a question? Okay. What we've arrived at through this workshop will be that I'm assuming that we're just going to let the RFQ lie there for right now, that we are going to wait until the audit is complete, that the auditors will bring their report, to which we will listen to intently and see what we don't understand, what we would like to ask about, and then we will schedule a workshop in which we will have a dialogue with these auditors, and then possibly revisit this, possibly not. Is that agreeable with everyone?
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else from the attorney?
I'll just add one other thing, ma'am, not to complicate
Go
this,
ahead.
but
Please.
because these new rules came in place about 10 years ago and we haven't revisited the contract, I would suggest that we at least consider the existing contract that we have and make sure that it meets the requirements of the statute, just because we need to.
Would we be okay to consider that at the point of the next workshop, or do we need to visit that today? What is your?
No, we can do that
As we do that.
whenever y'all. Yeah, I think
Okay.
before it should probably be done before the next audit
Okay.
commences.
Okay.
And so we can have an engagement letter. I have verified that we can use an engagement letter type of contract, but it needs to have the elements that are required by the statute in it.
In the meantime, can you review that contract?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
make sure-
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And let us know.
And my other question would be, I'm sorry, forgive me, but I just want to make sure I'm clear on this, that if we wait until this audit is complete and then we schedule a timely workshop, would there still be time at that time, as we have this letter of intent and this new, to make sure all the contract is intact and valid, would there still be time if we were to choose to issue an RFQ, or would we already be locked into the next year with this same auditor? If they've completed this audit, will they immediately receive a letter from us to start again, or can we have a little leeway there?
Let me answer that.
Yes.
I think we'll have plenty of time to do that, because especially if we can close up the books from last year, when Beverly thinks we can, we could schedule the workshop where he can explain, y'all can vote on the actual audit, and then we can shortly thereafter have the meeting.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? I appreciate all of your patience. I appreciate your willingness to discuss this, and so I'll declare the workshop complete, adjourned. Just like to say welcome to everyone. What a lovely group of people have come together tonight, not only for city government, but also for a very special occasion. It would be our first observance as a city of Lynn Haven as Black History Month. So thank you all for being here this evening, and we're going to have a wonderful time. At this time, I would like to call on Pastor Dion Gilbert of New Hope Missionary Baptist Church of Lynn Haven, Florida, to give our invocation. Would you please stand?
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, Lord, we thank you for this night. We thank you for how you have blessed this city of Lynn Haven. Lord, we ask that you continue to give our councilmen wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to continue to make our community better. Lord, we thank you for your grace, mercy, love, and favor for rest, ruling, and abiding within our community. And we ask that you continue to give us the spirit of unity. And Lord, we thank you and we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to recognize and to welcome the individuals and organizations, I'm sorry about the sound, the individuals and organizations who have participated tonight by sending their best wishes or by attending. So as I call the name of your organization or you as an individual, would you please stand and let us recognize you? First of all, members of Allen Chapel AME Church of Lynn Haven. Thank you. Campbell's Temple Holiness Church. They may not have arrived. New Hope Missionary Baptist Church. We have Pastor Dion. Bethesda Baptist Church. New Wave Ministries. For those of you coming in, there's more seating down front. The front row is always the most fun at any event. Come on down. Next, Shirlene McClary Ministries. Representatives from Acure. From the Gents Incorporated. The Gents have a beautiful display back here. Fresh Scent Coin Laundry Incorporated. The Steel Boys Bail Bonds. Doc's Tire Repair Incorporated. The Bay County chapter of the NAACP. There's more seating down front if you don't mind making the long walk. We'd love to have you come have a seat if you'd love to sit with us. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And of course, we have our own member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Alpha here. And then the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. The Bay County Floridian Club. The Lead Coalition. If you're not familiar with that one, I didn't see her yet, but Janice Lucas is the executive director, and that is youth. It's an organization to help with youth violence in our community, and I believe she's also the founder of that organization. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity. The Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. Mr. James McAllister. I'm sure he doesn't need an introduction, but he's a former superintendent of schools here in Bay County. Mrs. Flossie Gautier, the first African-American teacher of the year for Bay County. I'm hoping that she's here. Fernandez Griffin. And we had a conversation yesterday. And school board member Jerry Register, welcome. If you are an honored guest this evening and received an invitation and somehow or other we've overlooked you, if during the program, if you would just slip up and let Ms. Gaynor, our Deputy City Clerk, know so that we can recognize you, we would like that very much. Next, at this time, I just wanted to mention we have 3 city employees who have worked very, very hard to make this event a reality tonight. And first of all, that would be our Deputy City Clerk, Ms. Vicki Lily Gaynor. And with the camera over to my left and to your right is Lauren Corbin-Vilhauer. She's with our Community Services Department. And I call them the dynamic duo, but her partner in crime is Miss Tia Romano in the back. If you'll raise your hand. And they have really worked hard to make this a wonderful event. I would also like to again thank our police chief's lovely wife, Mrs. Reamer, for the beautiful cake and the lobby, as well as to our little business on Florida Avenue, Wild Root Coffee, for supplying coffee this evening. So thank you to both of you. At this time, I'd like to introduce our first soloist for the evening, and she really doesn't need an introduction because we've all heard her sing so beautifully on so many occasions. But Miss Linda Griffin is going to bring us a song.
Good evening. I want to share a song that's especially dear to my heart and to yours. Though the storm clouds gather for across the sea, let us pledge our allegiance to a land that's free. Let us raise our voices in a silent prayer. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America. Sing with me. Land that I love, stand beside her and guide her to the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Before she sang tonight, Miss Linda had come up and asked me if we would join with her when she sort of gave us the cue, and she said that she felt led to do that tonight. And I understand now why you said you felt led to do that. That was a beautiful moment, wasn't it? It was just wonderful. Thank you so much. Our first guest speaker tonight also needs no introduction. And before I ask him to come and speak with us, I just wanted to say that this entire event tonight was his idea. As a teacher for 34 years, I had seen many different celebrations, and our students took part in many different ways to celebrate Black History Month. But Mr. Miller pointed out to me that he hadn't seen a city really do it, and he said, I think we could do it here. And so it is my great honor and great joy to introduce to you tonight my friend, Mr. Leon Miller. He was the first elected African American commissioner for the city of Lynn Haven.
Thank you, thank you. I would just like to say from the very bottom of my heart to the mayor, the city commission, city manager, the city attorney, I want to say thanks for taking my idea and putting it in motion. And I want to say to all of you here tonight, this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We should have these kind of events all over the city every year. Black history is not just 1 month. In my heart is February. But Black history is every day that we come together and unite to make this place a better place for us to live. And we all stand up to the song that Miss Griffin sang, America. America is a great place to live. America is a great place to be. We know we have some ups and downs, but still, America is a great place to be. And when I first moved to Lynn Haven, that was a lot of hurdles that we had to cross. But we teamed up together, and we crossed these hurdles together. And I said to an interview today on TV, we don't need to stay home. We need to get involved and help making this community a better community for our great-grandchildren coming up in this country. We need to get deeply involved so that it can be a better place for them. I'm not going to stand here and talk all night, but I just want to say that I'm originally not from Lynn Haven, but there was other people before me in Lynn Haven, such as Mr. Buddy Griffin, Mr. Whit King. I'm going to say about Mr. Whit King, he worked for the city of Lynn Haven for over 30-some years. If you call Mr. Ben Kinsaw at night and say, my water been turned off, he'll tell you on the phone quickly, call Mr. Whit King, he'll come and take care of you. That was teamwork. Doc Smith, the tire place. Mrs. Steele, which owned the restaurant. The last two people I'm going to talk about is Judge Timothy Coon. Is from Lynn Haven. He was one of the first blacks in Bay County to be elected to a judge leadership in Lakeland, Florida. And the last one I'm going to talk about is Herbert Peterson, a young man that I had the opportunity to coach at Rosenwald High School. Herbert Peterson played baseball here in Lynn Haven. Where the city barn is at now, that was the baseball field. And on a Sunday afternoon, you couldn't get through that. The Lynn Haven police would come down and tell the people they got to move the cars off the road so traffic can flow. Herbert Peterson played. He graduated from Rosenwald High School, and he was signed by the Houston Astros with a contract. And he played for many years. And Herbert Peterson's name still rings in Bay County. Again, let me say to you tonight, from the very bottom of my heart, we hope that this event tonight will spread all over Bay County and help make Bay County a better place to live. Thank you.
Before I introduce our next guest speaker, I just wanted to point out all of the beautiful displays that you see tonight were provided by several different organizations. The schools that contributed tonight, Highland Park Elementary, Deer Point Elementary, and Mowat Middle School. And if you haven't taken time or haven't had a chance yet to see those displays, you'll want to check them out. And then the organizations and individuals who provided displays for this first occasion, Pastor Shirlene McClary, Mr. Leon Miller, the Gents organizations, the Lead Coalition, the Lynn Haven Library, and the Wilson Family Daycare Charities Incorporated. So please give them all a round of applause for the beautiful displays. Our next guest speaker really doesn't need an introduction at all because we all know her very well and love her very much. Miss Sharon Sheffield. And Sharon is our first African American mayor for the city of Lynn Haven. And she's also a leader in many ways to all of us. And I just don't even have the words to say tonight what she is showing to all of us in faith and strength as she lost her brother today. And her brother has gone on to rest, and she and her daughter Charlotte are both here today. And when I saw her outside, I said, "Will you be okay?" And she said, "I'm very strong." So welcome, Sharon Sheffield.
I am Sharon Sheffield, former commissioner and mayor for the city of Lynn Haven. My daughter Charlotte and I are here to represent the Griffin family and share a little Black history about Lynn Haven. We are of the lineage of Alfred Griffin, who was born in Georgia in 1831. Alfred Griffin was a slave who served under two masters and assumed the name of Griffin from the last one. The plantation owner was Lynn Griffin, who was located in Street, Florida. Alfred was the offspring of the first master. Alfred drove the family horses and was the general house helper during Civil War days. He hauled salt and fish from West Bay to Sneed's by mule team. On June 17, 1866, Alfred married Julia Freeman, a free slave in Jackson County. Alfred and Julia had 23 children. In the 1920s, the Griffins migrated to Vicksburg, now Southport, from Sneed's, which then was called Old Sinai because the KKK was running and lynching Black men in Sneed's. Jacob Griffin, a son of Alfred and Julia Griffin, was my grandfather. He married Delilah Griffin, Fluellen, in 1873. They had 13 children. The first 5 died. The next 8 was named after the dust of the earth. One of those children was my mother, Sinesta Griffin, and our Commissioner Antonius Barnes' grandmother, Estelle Griffin. The Griffins have many family members who have remained in Lynn Haven. We also have hundreds who return biannually for the Griffin family reunion to celebrate our strong legacy. Many of us still attend Allen Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Lynn Haven. The church was built by Jacob and his brothers John and Jim. The oldest family member locally is Reverend Frank C. Griffin, who is now 94 years of age, and is a retired minister who is currently in Panama City nursing home. Jacob and Delilah Griffin's home was located at 14th and Illinois, affectionately called the Big House. It was a very large home. Even by today's standards, and had a circular driveway. Every Sunday, black baseball leagues would play ball on the field across the street. In fact, black teams came from as far as Ebro to play ball there. Throughout the years, the members of the Griffin family have been successful, contributing members of the Lynn Haven community. We are proud to boast of city leaders, current and past, Sharon Sheffield Park and Kane Griffin Park.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Marshall. I'm 59 years old, and I only mention that to offer a perspective relative to what I have to say. Much of what I have to say, I lived through, not just read about. Little has been known or said about segregation in Lynn Haven. I attended March Green Elementary in Lynn Haven, an all-black school. It was located at the corner of Illinois and 16th Street. There is currently a pavilion at Kane Griffin Park in Mr. March Green's honor. The school was a long structure that looked like a portable divided into 3 classrooms. We had a total of 3 teachers. We had Mrs. Katie Lee Smith, who taught 1st and 2nd grade. Mrs. Thelma Polite taught 3rd and 4th. And the late Mr. Henry Griffin taught 5th and 6th. There was a small portable for administration. Mr. James Griffin was the principal, and my mother was the secretary. The only playground equipment we had was a dome-type jungle gym. We learned to read and previously used Dick and Jane books. We went home every day for lunch and returned to school afterwards. And we were paddled when we got in trouble, usually by Mr. Henry Griffin, and I know that by experience. I never made it to the 3rd room of the portable because of integration. Even though President Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act in 1964, abolishing segregation, the year of change here in Lynn Haven was 1968. I was 10. March Green was closed and we were sent to Lynn Haven Elementary. I despised the walk from my house on 14th and 9th Street while watching white students in my class ride a bus. And it was clear that black students were not welcome at Lynn Haven Elementary by students and teachers. I will say, though, that my experiences there made me a better teacher when I became one in 1980. I never wanted any of my students to feel the rejection that I felt during those times. After Lynn Haven, we went to Mowat Junior High School. Still, no bus. In fact, I was in the 7th grade when we finally got to ride a school bus. The early days of integration were not pretty. There were often fights, many hurt feelings, but we survived. I believe because of the tight black community and relationships we had at home at the time. No matter what happened at school, we always went home to our family, friends, and churches. That was where we felt safe, supported, and protected. Church, the black church, has been the one constant in our community since slavery days and even now. It is where blacks were allowed to gather during slavery without the watchful eye of the slave owner. Slaves could worship, speak, and sing in code to hope and escape to freedom. For example, the song you've heard, "Steal Away," was one of those encoded songs that had layered meanings. To steal away could be a religious call for coming closer to Jesus, or a covert call that you or someone else would attempt to find a way to escape to freedom. At times, slaves would moan the melody, and they used that to hide their true meaning from unwanted ears. That song evokes calls to steal away from oppression. A tradition that has stood the test of time in the black church is Watch Night. Watch Night service symbolizes the historical fact that on the night of December 31st, 1862, during the Civil War, free and freed blacks living in the Union states gathered at churches or other safe places while thousands of their enslaved black sisters and brothers stood, knelt, and prayed on plantations and other slaveholding sites in America, waiting for President Lincoln to sign the Emancipation Proclamation into law. The Emancipation Proclamation legally recognized that the Civil War was fought for slavery. African Americans continue the faith tradition of their enslaved ancestors, our enslaved ancestors, and gather still today on December the 1st annually at our churches. Even 156 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, African Americans joined with family members and church members to pray and thank God for allowing us to survive the oppressive voter suppression ID laws that were created by states even after President Barack Obama was elected the first African American president of these United States. These laws mirror the unethical, racially discriminating poll taxes and voting tests which were enacted after the Civil War. So, we maintain that tradition today on Watch Night, and 5 minutes before midnight, men, women, and children kneel and pray to God from the present year into the new year. A song that's reminiscent of those days gone by is still sung today. And pray for us because we have not practiced. It's been a difficult day. I didn't even give Mother her script, no harm, until this morning before I left for work. But we're going to attempt to sing 2 examples of songs that we still sing today, especially on Watch Night. Down through the years, the Lord's been good to me. Oh, down through the years, the Lord's been good to me. Oh, down through the years, the Lord's been good to me. I know the Lord's been good to me. Try the other one. I'll start. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
I think this has been the best commission meeting I've ever had the honor of presiding over.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I have to say, if we keep it up, I'm going to have church. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's good stuff. Sorry.
I did not realize that Charlotte Marshall was speaking immediately after her mother, Sharon Sheffield, and I neglected to tell you, if you didn't already know this, that she is the principal of Merritt Brown Middle School. So we are appreciative of her being there. At this time, we have a musical performance, and we'd like to thank you so much. You guys have been so patient to get all the way through to this point, and we're so excited to hear the choir from North Bay Haven Charter School. Come on up. their performance concludes our program this evening, and I'm just really speechless, except just to say that just what they just said, we can be kind. There's more in Lynn Haven that unites us than divides us. And I'm so happy to see everyone here tonight. I wanted to give an opportunity if any of the other commissioners would like to say something before we move on to our regular commission meeting. We have exciting meetings here. I want to invite you to stay for the whole thing if you would like. But if not, please feel free once they've spoken and to leave and help yourself to cake and coffee on the way out. And bless you, Sharon Sheffield and Charlotte Marshall and your family. And our prayers are going to be with you. Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just start just simply by saying thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for the vision. And let's do it again. It's fantastic. Thank you all. Guys, what a great message. We really appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you very much.
I just want to echo the same thing. A lot of things that Mr. Miller was talking about, I remember as a little kid, and you know, it's just a great performance tonight on everyone's behalf. So thank you so much.
I'm just proud to be an American. Thank you, guys. Makes me feel great.
Commissioner Russell.
I'm going to say the exact same thing. I think it's wonderful. I think we should do this every year, and it means a lot to hear about the history. Thank you.
Commissioner Russell, did you?
I forgot to turn my mic on. Sorry about that. Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. And Ms. Sheffield, thank you again. When I was running, she supported me and gave me a lot of good advice, and I thank you very much for that. And Mr. Miller, thank you very much for being here tonight too, sir. Thank you.
I'd just like to echo what the mayor mentioned earlier. I really appreciate Miss Vicki and Lauren and Tia for what they did. If y'all would, please give them another round of applause for pulling this off.
And with that, we will conclude our program. We'll give everyone about 5 minutes to, if you want to exit. If you want to hang around while we're having the meeting and look at any of the exhibits or just stay, please feel very welcome. And thank you again for attending. Don't forget your cake on the way out, Bay Haven. If we can get all the commissioners back to the table, we'll be ready to begin.
I think one's in the bathroom still. I think Thomas is still in the bathroom.
Okay.
Oh, here he's coming now.
That's the first one I heard, didn't like the black. Oh, well. Yeah.
Come on, Gil. Everybody calls him Jim. I'm going to call you Gil.
Number 3.
Let's get the show on the road. Still shaking. Turn the heat on.
I'll read it.
I don't like wearing coats, but I guess maybe I'll bring me one next
Make
time.
sure I think it's all we got to do.
Yeah, my dad would roll over in grave if I wore a
I
coat.
think we're all present and accounted for except for Mr. Jackson, our attorney, and he's headed this way, so we're good. Please feel free as the meeting continues to avail yourself of the refreshments as we go. It'll make the meeting more fun, maybe. Okay. We're on item number 3 now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be quite so loud. And we're now beginning a public hearing, and so I'll need to declare the time, which is 6:58, and the public hearing is now open. And this is for the Small Scale Plan Amendment SSA 18-3. DP Nelson Properties, LLC, Transmittal Ordinance number 1052, the final reading, and there will be no action taken on this until item number 11 of tonight's agenda. I believe our city manager has that to read for us.
Okay, ordinance number 1052, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from commercial to mixed use for an approximate 1.75 acres of property located at 301 and 303 West 26th Street in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you, and I believe our city planner, Miss Amanda Richard, has a report for us on this item. Thank you.
Yes. This is a small-scale future land use map amendment. The applicant is DP Nelson, LLC. There is no agent. He's probably here somewhere. Yes, he's here. The address is 301 and 303 West 26th Street, parcel number 11822-650-525. The existing land use is commercial, and what is being requested is a land use of mixed use. The existing uses on the site are Pediatrics Plus, and the size of the property is 1.756 acres. To the north, the adjacent land uses, to the north, medium density residential, to the south, commercial, to the east, commercial, and to the west, residential open space. This is a location map which shows the location on West 26th Street. It's actually located behind the Waterworks car wash facility. And it used to be a doctor's office, I believe. This is the aerial shot. This is the current land use. You can see that it's the same as the commercial land uses which are immediately to the east and the south. But catty corner, there is mixed use. And if you allow for the land use to go through the land use change, then this is how the land use map will look. If you decide to approve this land use change, this amendment, then following approval, it gets sent to the state because land use is controlled by the state. And if it's not challenged within 30 days, it becomes effective on the 31st day. The reason that they're asking for the land use change is because they would like to be able to have a small, basically special needs, gifted children with special needs school, as well as therapy take place in that building. And as I said, a representative is here tonight, so if you have any specific questions regarding that, I'm sure he'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions or concerns from the board? There appear to be none. Are there any questions or concerns from the public? Thank you. This will be addressed by item number 11 in tonight's agenda. So since there are no questions or concerns from either the board or public, this public hearing is hereby closed at 7:02. Item number 4 on tonight's agenda is the mayor's report. I would just like to give you a little bit of a report of my activities over the last couple of weeks. I participated in a fundraising activity with the American Legion Post here in Lynn Haven for the Fisher House, which is a house provided for the family or families of service members or veterans who are being treated. It's similar to the Ronald McDonald House for children, but it's for service members' families. I attended the TPO, the transportation meeting, on the 21st. I spoke at the Panhandle Federated Republican Women's Luncheon by invitation on the 21st, and I enjoyed going to those various meetings. And then I also spoke at Publix, our supermarket here in Lynn Haven, for their United Way celebration. And then I also had the honor of singing the national anthem, and I won't call it pitching a baseball because I almost hit the catcher with it. It's just not my forte, but I did participate and had a great time out there with them. At this time, I'd like to read a proclamation because all the cities across Bay County are participating in Clean Up, Paint Up, Fix Up Month, which is March. And so, whereas many of the municipalities of Florida are participating in campaigns to promote the beauty, health, sanitation, and neatness of such municipalities, and whereas the Operation Cinderella Committee of Panama City and Bay County is especially desirous that the city of Lynn Haven be foremost in said characteristics of beauty, health, sanitation, and neatness, and whereas the season of the year now beginning is the appropriate season for general spring cleaning on a citywide scale as well as on an individual basis. Whereas the city will designate the last 2 weeks in March 2018 as amnesty for the citizens of Lynn Haven, Florida, meaning that the city is going to pick up those things that you'd like to get rid of, except for your spouse. I'm just kidding. Now therefore, I, Margot Anderson, Mayor of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of March 2018 as Clean Up, Paint Up, Fix Up Month, and urge the people of Lynn Haven to make it their personal responsibility to join in this worthwhile campaign to clean up and beautify their individual properties, the adjacent areas, and the entire community. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, to be affixed this 27th day of February 2018. And I believe Commissioner Friend, as well as some members of the staff, will be attending at the Bay County ceremony. I'm going to be that day at Highland Park Elementary School participating in their Literacy Day and being a part of their Special Friends Day. So very excited about that. And so that is the end of the mayor's report. And I will pass on to the commissioner's report, item number 5, beginning with Commissioner Friend.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to also mention that I did attend and participated in the TPO meeting. And the only thing I wanted to bring out on there is you may start seeing some work or activity, maybe more activity than work to begin with, on Mill Bayou and 390, that bridge. We did get confirmation from FDOT that they're going to do 3 lanes there. So the bridge will be 3 lanes, and then they'll add an additional 3 lanes and that becomes a 6 lane from 390 from 77 to 231. So that's good news. And also wanted to just point out, also relates to the TPO in light of today's events, is Mr. Miller. He didn't mention it, but I'll be happy to mention that he continues to serve and show leadership. The TPO has a CAC committee, and he serves on that and has for several years, and so he continues to serve even to this day and show leadership there in that position. And also, I'd just like to mention what an unbelievable opening day we had again this year. Thanks to all the staff and everybody involved. It was a great event. I was going to say anything about the pitching, but Mayor did an unbelievable job of singing, and I was just going to say we're probably pretty safe that a professional softball team probably will not pick up the mayor and take her away from us. So just say thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, I actually missed the opening baseball season, and I hated that. But I had 2 young men to throw the ball for me. Also, I talked with the city manager this week about some stray cats that are in Porter Park, and he's supposed to take care of that. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Commissioner Tender?
Yes. I've been busy fielding calls from residents, drainage issues, and you name it. I think I've heard it in the last couple of weeks. I passed them on to our city manager, and he's been taking care of them promptly, which I really appreciate. I would like to recognize and thank our police department, because I have to tell you, I have seen more people getting stopped than I have ever seen since I've lived here. I moved here in 1988, and our police presence is amazing. I see them every day, and I don't think they're following me, so I'm pretty sure that they're out there doing their job, and I just want to thank them because I think it makes a huge difference. I feel like things are slowing down a little bit, and I think that does do it. I had a call this afternoon from a gentleman, and I promised him I would bring this up tonight. If any of you have received these little yellow cards on your mailboxes, and yes, I see heads going, the city has nothing to do with that. It is a private business. You don't know who it is because they don't have a phone number there. They do not have a name of their company or anything. And they're asking you to put some of your tap water in that little plastic vial, if you will, and tape it back to your mailbox, and they'll pick it up. I don't know if we have any word, if the city manager has any word who it is or what they're doing, but I bet somebody will be calling you wanting to sell you a soft water something or other or whatever down the line. But just to give you that information in case you hadn't seen it. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Mayor. I too attended the opening baseball day and was absolutely amazed at the number of boys and girls who were out there to play. I want to say the number was 700? 750 young men and women, or boys and girls that are participating in our youth programs, and that is just absolutely amazing. I have not had a whole lot to do the last couple of weeks, so y'all have been really nice to me. I've had a couple of phone calls, though, and Ms. Richards is helping me with one issue with some parking with a business, and it looks like it's not going to be the perfect turnout, but it's going to be resolved. And then I had another business lady call to me about an issue that's coming before the commission tonight that I'd like to address, but I'm going to wait until that time to address it. So, okay. But thank y'all for coming, and that's all I've got, Mayor.
Thank you. At this time, item number 6 is the city manager's report.
No report.
Really?
Item number 7 is the city attorney's report.
No report, Mayor.
So what are we paying? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Moving on to item number 8. This is the public commentary. It's a time, if you're not familiar with our meetings, we move this to the beginning. So if you have an issue that you need to bring before the commission that is not on tonight's agenda that you would like to bring before the commission, it can be anything that you need to talk about. And so you can just come forward to the podium and we're ready to listen to you. Anyone? Mr. Miller?
Thank you. Leon Miller, 1508 Mississippi Avenue, Lynn Haven. I have 3 or 4 things that I need to ask questions about. 17th Street. When baseball going on out there, I think there need to be some kind of sign or light flashing because it is really congested down there at that area. That they let people know to slow down baseball in progress down at King Griffin Park.
Mr. Miller, this issue, is this something, Mr. White, that we can address through our traffic ordinance, that we would consider this street as?
That field he's speaking about, North Bay Haven, utilizes that field, so they have a lot of baseball games down there.
Okay.
Currently this year, we have all our games being played out at the sports complex, so I will get with North Bay Haven and also get with our staff and see what we can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
The other one is 17th Street going to be striped?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. I would like to, for the city or the city attorney or somebody, to start looking at a long-range plan for some kind of small auditorium for the city of Lynn Haven. To see if there's grants available to have a small auditorium where meetings and et cetera could be held.
If we keep having meetings like tonight, we're going to need more space.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. And also, Mr. Miller, I was just recently looking at, Mosley High School now has their new fine arts auditorium, and that's going to be available for rental, so it might be that we can work out something with them, a partnership with city and schools, that we could have usage of that for our larger events too, so.
Okay, thank you. And the last thing is that how are we progressing with the turn lane up there on 17th Street by Tender Credit Union?
We're not. I'm sorry. We're still working on several other projects with them, including the 17th Street ditch. I was on the phone yesterday with DOT, with contractors. I'm still diligently working. It's just a very slow process.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else have an issue for the commission tonight? Sure. You're fine.
Tom Nolan, 1219 Alabama. And I, like a lot of my neighbors, got that letter in the mail last week. And I basically just have a question. What's happening with that? When's that going to be back on the agenda? The Marina Island.
As far as the land use change?
Yes.
What happened before, if you're not familiar, the developers from Marina Island had asked for permission to change a single-family dwelling area in Lynn Haven to a mixed use, which would have allowed them to go forward with a condo project. And every member of this commission basically, by not making a motion that night, really said what they had to say by silence or by speaking up. Please correct me, Mr. Jackson, if I'm incorrect, but our attorney has told us that at some point that will come before the commission, that we'll have to do an up or down vote. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but I think the commission has pretty much let you know where they stand on that. I know I have, and I know several others have, but Mr. Jackson, you want to address that?
Well, my recollection, Mayor, is that the applicant requested that the item be withdrawn.
Right.
And so at some point he can reapply, and it would go through the same cycle, but it would not necessarily have to come back for a up or down vote unless the applicant desires that.
Okay, so at this point in time, it appears that it's not going to be before the commission, but if it should be, we'll make sure it's well publicized.
I got the letter in the mail. That's why I'm here.
Okay.
And the other thing, I did take the time this weekend to go and talk to a few of my neighbors, all of us which are adjacent property owners to the rail right-of-way. And I didn't find anybody that wanted a two-lane boulevard with a grass median behind their house. And that includes me.
Okay.
That'll put all of us with roads, a lot of us road on three sides of your property. And,
As far as the road being addressed in the last meeting, that was not. We were talking about the 2.9 acre land use.
Well, in the letter we got, and not trying to, and I believe you, but in the letter we got, it said all associated roadways and utility infrastructure involved.
Okay.
So that's why I'm asking you about the Marina Island Boulevard.
Okay.
And, letting you know that I ain't real happy about that.
Thank you for bringing that before us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Rutha Skelton. I live at 1606 Minnesota Avenue. My issue is with drainage on 16th Street and Minnesota Avenue. Whenever it rains, it pours, and the water just stands. And there have been people in the community that have boats just really up and down the street. So I'm just wondering, when are we going to get a good drainage on that street? Because it's just overwhelming. Cars have passed through and could not get through, even to walk out of my house to my driveway. It's just like all the water is just coming back on me. So I'm just wondering, when are you going to address that issue? So
Okay.
that's my concern right now.
And I think that's a very fair question. There are several streets in Lynn Haven who experience that.
Yes.
We're in the process right now of beginning a stormwater study that our engineering firm is going forward and trying to find at last sort of an answer for Lynn Haven to try and solve several of the drainage problems like yours.
Yes.
And hopefully that's going to be happening very soon. Also, the paving project that's underway right now, there are several phases. We're in phase 2 right now, and we are installing new infrastructure. All this is being paid for by the half-cent sales tax project. And as you've seen, there's a lot of construction going on all over Lynn Haven. But if you experience this type of flooding again within the next time it rains, please call and let the city manager know.
Because in the news, it said was to send pictures and all of that, and I did.
Okay.
And I never received a response from the city of Lynn Haven.
How long ago was that?
It's been last year.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you, last year.
Okay,
When
Mr. White.
we had all the rains and all of that, and it just flooded and flooded and flooded, I did not get any response at all.
Ma'am, are you going to stay for the entirety of the meeting?
Yes, I am.
All right, can you get with me? Let me make sure I got your address.
I sure will.
And we'll take care of it.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 1606 Minnesota. Was that correct? Okay. Was there anyone else who needed to speak this evening? Okay. Then we'll move on to item number 9, which is the consent agenda. This is just the approval of the minutes for the February 13th regular meeting. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion from the commission on the minutes? Any from the public? Yes. Sir, we're on a different motion right now. If you'll give us just a moment to finish this, I'll be glad to go back and let you ask a question. Okay? Any question on this item? Okay. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the minutes are approved. If there's no objection from the commission, I'd like to return to item 8 for public commentary and allow this gentleman to say what he wanted to say. Any objection from the commission? Okay, come on up, sir. The Rails to Trails project, is that what? It's a Rails to Trails project, and there's also a planned road leading into that fuel depot property. City manager, would you like to address?
Yes, that has not came before us yet, the commission. However, it is a planned project that will incorporate a roadway going into the property as well as the rails to trails, which will be a lot of walking paths. The current railroad bed right now. The rails to trails will essentially go all the way to 231. The road will go, I think, to 77, 390. I'm sorry, 3. That's the intent, yes, sir. Sir, I don't know.
Sir, would you like to make an appointment to come in and sit down and look at the mapping and the plan of what is, okay, and that way maybe get some more clarification? None of it's been approved at this point by this commission. It's just a... Okay, if you would speak, and you can come up and speak, I'll allow you to do that, but let's finish addressing his first. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, sir, do you want to wait until the end of the meeting? Have you got time to make an appointment with Mr. White, and then he can give you some more clarification and hopefully answer some of the questions that you have? Sir, did you want to speak as well? I appreciate that concern, and I will say that everything that has been approved so far before the commission has been publicized. If you will watch for the city website, or you can call any of us at any time, you can visit with the city manager. But at this point in time, none of that is approved. For example, the fuel depot property, which was purchased by Marina Island LLC, until recently, there was nothing from that developer that ever indicated that they wanted to have a land use change there on that 2.9 acres. And then suddenly they brought a new partner in, and that's what they brought before this commission. And based on, I know the way I felt about it, and obviously the rest of the commission felt the same way, we addressed the developer and he said, no, our residents have said this is not what they want, this was not part of the plan, and so we stood on the side of the residents who wanted to keep that single family dwelling. And so as each item comes up, you have a planning board here in Lynn Haven, and you have this commission who they're going to have to go through for each step. And so just stay in contact, come to these meetings, speak your mind, and be part of that process and part of those public hearings to make sure that this follows the process that you as the Lynn Haven residents want it to follow. Yes, Ms. Richard. I can't hear what you're saying. Yes, none of this has, I don't know exactly what letters you've received or whatever, but none of this has been submitted to the Lynn Haven Planning Department or the Planning Commission. This is just, these are ideas of the developer, so none of that's approved. These are just ideas that I'm assuming that they have submitted. I know there were some meetings held by the developer with some of the residents for Lynn Haven Bayou, for example, and that was not city approved either. So as Ms. Richard, the city planner, said, none of this has yet even come before the planning board. So I would encourage you to stay involved with the city, and I will also tell you that I, as well as some of the other commissioners, live in the same area you do. I'm on Tennessee Avenue, so I'm staying on top of it as well, and you're welcome, appointment, phone call, anytime. Right. Well, okay. The rails that are being taken up right now are part of the plan for, there's a walking path that has been planned for a long time as far as the rails to trails. The rails are being removed right now because part of the agreement was when the rails, once the property was closed, that those rails could be removed and the city and the developer would split the profits over those rails. So that's all that's happening right now. There's nothing else that's moving forward at this time. Does that answer your question or concern? There will definitely be the rails to trails, the walking path, and that will extend all the way out to the sports complex by 390. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Yes, but it's just been in the final stages where the engineering has been submitted recently. So, okay, thank you. Okay, anything else for public commentary, and then we'll move on. The workshop for the rails to trails, there have already been workshops. It's now in the engineering phase. And please correct me if I say something incorrect, but the engineering phase has already happened, and then once those plans are submitted, then we can move forward to applying for the next grant monies for the actual path. So we're still in the very beginning stages. Does that answer your question?
Mayor.
Okay, I'm going to let Commissioner Friend weigh in. We're all commissioners and mayor. Everybody serves everybody.
Yeah.
Commissioner Friend had a comment I think he wanted to make.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mayor. I would just point out, Ms. Whitkoff had the vision for Rails to Trails several years ago, and I made a promise to her in 2011 that I would continue that vision. So I've kind of taken the lead, if you will, on the Rails for Trails. And so, but I just wanted to mention that hopefully the first or second meeting of the commission meeting of March, that we'll have more information on the Rails to Trails. But and just to follow up, we all serve at large for all of Lynn Haven, so feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to meet with anyone. You can go through the city, 265-2121, or COMM_friend at thecityoflynnhaven.com. Be happy to meet with you anytime. Thank you, Mayor.
We're happy to have you here and involved. So moving, anybody else have a comment? And then I'm going to, okay, we're still in the public commentary because I went back to item 8. So if you would, sir, would you stand so we can hear you? I won't make you come to the front. And do you mind telling me your address, sir? 1207 Alabama? Okay. And your name again? Andrew. Okay, city manager has your address and he'll be in contact with you, okay? All right. Anyone else tonight? Yes, sir. Okay, I think I understand. Sir, I understood your question the first time. There's a Rails to Trails project. There's also nothing has come before the Planning Commission. Nothing has come before the Lynn Haven Commission about the boulevard. Yes, the developer has drawn out a plan for a boulevard, but it has not been submitted to the city. It has not been submitted yet. When or if it is, it'll be publicized and you'll have an opportunity to address that. Okay? Does that clarify for everybody? Pretty good, I hope? Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. We've already done item number 9, which was the consent agenda, so now I'm moving to the old business, item number 10, and that is the final reading of ordinance number 1051, amendment to Unified Development Code, section 5.05.163, and that is motorized vehicle sales, new or used. And we have a report. Well, first of all, I'll have the city manager to read the ordinance, which is 1051.
Ordinance 1051, an ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending Section 5.05.13 of the Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code relating to the requirements for motorized vehicle sales, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediate effective date.
Thank you. And Ms. Richard, who is our city planner, has a report for this item.
Yes, we've had a few requests over the last few years from people who would like to locate a car sales lot along Highway 77. Currently, the way our code is written, we don't allow outside storage in commercial land use areas. We only allowed outside storage in industrial and research park, which means that a car dealership that had inside storage, such as an inside showroom, would be allowed. But if they wanted cars outside, they would have to bring them in at night because they can't leave them out at night because that constitutes outside storage. And so what's being proposed here is that car lots with outside storage of vehicles be allowed in a certain area of Highway 77. And what was being proposed was south of Mosley Drive to the southern city limits. Currently, we do have some car lots with outside storage in other parts of Highway 77, but they were grandfathered in when the Unified Land Development Code was changed and the ordinance came in that did not allow outside storage. They were already there, and so they were allowed, and they are allowed to remain where they are.
Okay, so that completes the report. Are there any questions that the commission or items that the commission would have for Ms. Richard about this item?
I do have a question. Is it possible where we can extend that to come north on 26th Street and say from 26th Street to Baldwin Road to make that into the car lot approved area?
You would ask to amend it so that it would, instead of coming from Mosley, it would go further north.
Right.
And
Now, there's some procedural things on there, I'm sure, right?
There actually would have to be a change, just an amendment, and I think that I know I've had a couple of calls from people who are interested in that, and I had asked the attorney and the city manager about it, and all we would really have to do, correct me, Mr. Jackson, if I'm incorrect, is just to make a motion to just change that wording so that it, instead of saying Mosley Drive, it would say 26th or whatever the street is that we would want to extend it.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. You can amend the ordinance by motion, and we just make that change, and it would go forward from there for consideration.
Well, therefore, I move that we make the change to extend it north to 26th Street, so that whole area would be from 26th Street down to Baldwin Road.
I would second that motion.
And so just for clarification, we would change on K in the ordinance, I would change Mosley Drive to 26th Street. So it would read, car lots with outside storage of vehicles shall be permitted along Highway 77, south to 26th Street to the southern city limits.
Okay.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And that was your second?
South of 26.
South, yeah.
You said two instead
Oh, I'm
of
sorry. South of 26th Street to the southern city limits. I'm sorry.
Those prepositions are important. We don't get those in here. Okay, so there's been a motion and a second. Is there any question from any member of the board or any comments about that? Are there any questions or comments from the public regarding that change? There appear to be none. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the motion stands approved. Item number 11 is the final reading of ordinance. Oh, we just did that, sorry. Item number, no, we didn't, sorry. I'm confused, I'm sorry. Item number 11, the final reading of ordinance number 1052 of a small-scale plan amendment, SS-18-3, DP Nelson Properties LLC, and that is referring to the public hearing that we had before the meeting began. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
So moved, sorry. I'm not even paying attention now.
Okay. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We don't need to read it again.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so we've already read it. There's been a motion, a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any questions? Any further discussion from the public or questions? There appears to be none. Mr. White, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so it stands approved. Moving on to new business, item number 12, this is the approval of the Florida Department of Transportation Utility Work Agreement for the reimbursement of utility costs for off-site improvements on the State Road 390 expansion, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions or discussion about this item?
Other than, excuse me, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Obviously, I've actually been a commissioner almost a year now, but I know we have to do this, but it infuriates me that we're going to incur $1.1 million in cost over widening this road. It's a state road, the state's widening it, and the city of Lynn Haven is going to incur over 1.1 million in our expense because of this widening, and that just doesn't bode well with me. But I have been told that one way or the other, they're going to do it, and we're going to pay it. So it is what it is. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else have a question or concern?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question. Where is that money coming from?
Go ahead, Mr. White.
This will be something that we can budget in the next fiscal year, so we'll have to budget for this. It won't, construction will not start until after next fiscal year, but we have to go ahead and get all these, everything signed off on, approved with DOT where they can move forward.
Commissioner Russell, one thing you may want to remember is the fact that the bridge on Arthur Drive, FDOT paid for that, and we did not pay for anything, so.
Well, yeah, but it's our taxpayers' money going to the state as well.
I know.
So, it's my money they're spending to fix stuff, so I don't have a problem with that.
But
I don't like them making me
I
spend
totally agree.
my money in the city.
We got a bridge out of it, so.
Are there other comments from the commission? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We've had a motion and a second. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Stands approved. Sorry, Commissioner Russell. Item number 13 is the approval of John Miller to the Board of Adjustments. We have a report from the city planner, or? Okay.
So the City of Lynn Haven Board of Adjustment sits to hear application requests for variances from the requirements of the Unified Land Development Code. The Board of Adjustment requires 5 members to sit on the board, and we've had a lot of trouble actually recently getting enough members, and in fact we had to cancel the last meeting that we had called because one of the members was not able to attend at the last minute. So we've been very fortunate in that we've just had an application from Mr. John Miller to be considered to sit on the board, and the addition of Mr. Miller will fill the remaining seat needed to meet the required 5-member board. So the planning department is requesting that Mr. Miller be appointed to the board. Thank you.
Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Second?
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the commission?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question. Ms. Richards, do you know who the members are that are currently seated on that board?
Do I know who they are?
Yes, ma'am.
I do know who they are. That board, do you know what? That board has met so infrequently over the last few years. So we've got some new members. There's Mr. AJ Patel, who's currently in India. I have
okay.
their
Could you
names.
just text me the list? Yeah.
If anybody would like to know who they are, I have their names in the office. But this is going to be the 3rd time this year that they've met. So, and I think it's been 2 years since we had a meeting. So some of the members that were on kind of fell off. Frances Witkoff was on and she's fallen off. So that's why we've been short. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Mayor, I'll just use the opportunity to say thank you so much. Is Mr. Miller here tonight? Or? Thank you, sir. Well, okay. Well, I just thank you very much for serving, and these boards are very important. They serve a good role for not only the residents, but also for the commission. So thank you for serving, and anyone else that serves on the boards. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Any other questions? Any comments or questions from the public? Mr. White, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Miller, for agreeing to serve on that board. Also, there are openings on some of our other boards, the Community Services Board, the Beautification Board. So if you're interested in those, there are applications online or at City Hall. We'd love to have people serving on those boards. Item number 14, this is approval to increase the splash pad project budget by $100,000. I believe they're wanting to change the wording a little bit on this. So, Mr. White.
Yes, ma'am. We got all the bids in, and we were kind of shocked with what they were come out to be. However, we do have one that is $100,000 more than what we budgeted. If you remember, we budgeted $300,000. We got a price of $400,000. In the budget itself, there is another baseball field that was going to be erected this year. I'm opting not to do that in this budget. I'd like to take from that particular money for that field and put it towards these 2 splash pads where we can get the project going.
Okay. Any questions from the board about that?
I have one.
Okay.
you said that we budgeted 300,000 for both splash pads? And I just want to ask, and I may have misunderstood, but at one point I know, Mayor, you went and looked at a nice splash pad somewhere, and I could be mistaken. Was it like 250 at the time?
Yes, but it had standing water and other issues with it, so we opted for something different. And also just to keep in mind that these are, the funds that he's looking at for the splash pads are for Kensal Park and for the sports complex, and that these funds would come from impact fees and they couldn't be used for anything else. And so it would just add 2 beautiful splash parks for our children here. So.
Okay. Do we know which order we're going to build them in?
Kensal will be the first one.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
I would just, to bring that up again, when I saw it, I did talk to the city manager. And before the budget meeting, I did a little research, made some phone calls, talked to some other municipalities. And so when I brought to the budget meeting a figure of $150,000, I was fairly comfortable with that number. But as the city manager advised me, I mean, I guess because of construction and the economy and all that, I mean, the cost is just more. So, thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
Mayor, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Will this have to come back before us to approve the contract, or is it a done deal? And assuming we agree to spend the extra $100,000.
No, the contract, the winner of the contract, we already have a contract in place, so we can move forward.
Okay.
Okay. Questions from the public regarding the splash pads? Okay, Mr. White, would you call the roll, please? We're on. Oh, I thought we had a motion. I'm sorry. We've been here since 4 o'clock. I do apologize. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. White, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So it stands approved. And this is going to be very exciting for our children here in Lynn Haven because there'll be a splash park out at the sports complex for one side of town and then another one at Kensal Park for this side. And I think the children are going to absolutely love that this summer. It's going to give them a safe place to be. And so we're down to item number 15, which is finally the adjournment. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It's been a really, really nice evening, and this meeting is adjourned.